Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is March 23rd, and with opening day this week, let's talk some predictions. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? March 23rd, March 25th, March 26th. We are here. We have done it. It is officially time for opening day. Yes, we've gone through the off season. We've seen the signings. We've seen the trades, all the waivers and all the moves. We've hit through spring training and watched our teams and our favorite players back in action. We went through the drama and the excitement of the 2 weeks that the World Baseball Classic brought us. But all of that comes down to one moment and one moment only, and that is, of course, opening day, the start of a new season, the start of a new year. And we're here, and it's happening this week. Of course, opening night, Yankees and Giants, they get a little game before the season starts on the 25th here. But then on the 26th, most teams have their opening day. Not everybody, but that is the way the cookie will crumble here. Some will start on the 27th, but this was the last weekend that we had without any baseball until the World Series, which is very exciting, until the postseason. So all that's great stuff here. We got a couple of things, some last-minute moves to talk about on the agenda here, so we'll start with those quickly here. First, a couple of IL stints to mention. First off, for the Braves, they announced that Spencer Strider has an oblique strain. He's going to start the season on the IL. Not too sure on a timetable for him. It shouldn't be too long, but the way Strider pitched last year after coming back from Tommy John, I think the Braves this year are taking more of a precautionary side for him, just because they want to make sure he's built up. I mean, the Spencer Strider that we saw, a couple years ago, like, that guy is an ace. That guy can do a lot for this team here. And the Braves have had this weird pattern of bringing up these really talented pitchers for like a year or two, and then they kind of lose a lot of that. We saw it with Michael Soroka back in 2019. Do you guys remember Kyle Wright? How about Ian Anderson? He was a postseason hero, had a really strong year and then kind of fell off the face of the earth from that point on. Hopefully, Strider can kind of bounce back, find his form. I mean, at his prime, he's a very good pitcher, and I would love to see him return to that form. And I think the Braves desperately need that this year if they want to stay competitive in what will be a tight NL East. Obviously the Phillies and Mets will be there, but don't count the Marlins yet either, because the Marlins, they showed some fight last year, and if they can take that fight into 2026, they could definitely be competing for a postseason spot as well. However, speaking of those Marlins, Kyle Stowers, he's going to miss about a month with a grade 1 hamstring strain. And this one is a bigger blow for the Marlins in my mind, because Kyle Stowers was one of the guys for the Marlins. He broke out last year, had an incredible 2025 campaign. And, there are other guys on this Miami team that, will be able to fill the hole a little bit in the meantime. Remember, last year they started on like a 13-game losing streak. If that doesn't happen, the Marlins could have been in a playoff spot last year as well. That's how close they got towards the end. They got really hot in the second half, partially due to how great Kyle Stowers was. It is about a month. It's not like anything longer than that. So I think the Finns can last a month without Stowers, but that's definitely a huge blow. You want Sandy Alcantara to kind of find that Cy Young form again a little bit. You need some players who, were missing a step last year. You need them to step up, fill those holes in the meantime. But when Stowers is back and healthy, ready to go, that should really help that Miami team, entering into May and, mid-May there. So until he gets back there, Miami should do their best to kind of try to stay in the mix there, in the NL East. But hopefully it's nothing too long for him in that regards. So those were the two IL stints that were, the major names to announce here. Of course, there were some other minor ones that we don't need to get into. Christopher Sanchez, though, is something that we need to talk about as well, because he was extended by the Phillies. How about that? He got a 6-year extension worth $107 million, as well as a club option for 2033 for the Phillies. Of course, this deal will start into 2027, so he'll be with the Phillies from 27 all the way to 2032, with the potential for 2033's club option as well. There's also upwards of $13 million of incentives for Sanchez in this contract, as well as it being a backloaded contract. When you look, it looks like he's making about $6 million next year in 2027, where he'll be making $30 million in 2032. So that is kind of the deal there for Christopher Sanchez. And look, he had a fantastic year last year. I mean, his numbers will back that up, and top 3 in Cy Young voting as well. He was a fantastic pitcher. We saw him in the World Baseball Classic. We saw him make a really good start. We saw him make a really poor start. The Phillies are banking on him to be the new leader of that staff. Zach Wheeler still on the IL. They lost Ranger Suarez in free agency. Aaron Nola, who looked good with Italy in the World Baseball Classic, he had one of the worst seasons of his career last year. I think he can push that aside and be better this year. Is he going to be the ace of that staff? Probably not. It is going to look towards Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo to kind of take up that 1-2 role. For so long here with the Phillies, we've seen this Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler duo, this 1-2 punch at the start of that rotation, and then Ranger Suarez being the happy 3. With one being hurt and one having the worst year of his career, it is looking like Jesus Luzardo and Christopher Sanchez both received extensions by the Phillies. So the Phillies trying to lock up what should be a front end of their rotation going forward now. And I think that's a really smart thing to do for them, because if it works out, I mean, Jesus Luzardo and Christopher Sanchez can be 2 of the top, 20, 25 starting pitchers in baseball. So to have those guys both locked up on pretty decent deals. I mean, 6 years for 107. Of course, that takes up some of his arbitration years as well. I think it's a good deal, and I hope Christopher Sanchez can kind of find that form that he had last year, continue it on, because if he can be that consistent in that kind of level of pitcher, then you have a Cy Young caliber pitcher for 6 years that costs you $107 million, which in my mind is a great deal for the Phillies. So good stuff there from the NL East. Basically, all this news was from the NL East, but I digress. Let's get into what we're really here for, and that is for my 2026 predictions. We're going to start with MVPs, go to Cy Youngs, rookies, relievers, managers, and from there go over divisions and my World Series pick. Of course, the division winners, I did technically announce all of those in our DOP, so if you missed those, you got about 2-3 days to go back and see what I have to say about your favorite team. There's a playlist on YouTube as well. But let's get into it with MVPs here. So this is, and to be honest, the MVPs and Cy Youngs are kind of boring, because guess what? It's going to be Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Tarek Skubal, and Paul Skeens, right? Like, that's like a pretty easy thing, right? I'm going to pick guys outside of that. I'm going to pick guys where, let's say Judge or Ohtani has an off year or an injured year, whatever it may be the case. Let's say Judge and Ohtani don't win the MVP. Who is going to take over? Well, that's what I want to do. So for the AL, there's a couple of really fun names to choose from here. Nick Kurtz and Roman Anthony, 2 guys coming off their rookie years. They are scheduled to be, if you look at MVP odds, like, they're up there, man. Like, these guys are guys that are going to lead Boston into postseason pushes, lead the Athletics into this new regime of the Las Vegas era. Like, they are the guys, the cream of the crop, and these guys are amazing. But it's their second year. I don't know how much I trust that. You've got, Cal Raleigh. Can he repeat what he did last year? Last year was such a historic year for Cal Raleigh. I don't know if that's in him. Bobby Witt, he's going to win an MVP at some point in his career. That's the kind of guy that Bobby Witt can be here. Call me a little bit biased here. I'm going to say that if it's not Judge, the AL MVP should be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think the way we saw him play in the postseason last year, the way he's played in the World Baseball Classic, he's not the type of player we thought he was going to be. When he was this top prospect all the way back in 2018 and 19, we said that this guy was a guy that was going to mash the ball. He was going to be hitting 40, 50 home runs a season, and that was the type of player he was going to be. He has that power, but he doesn't have that kind of, flight path that we thought he was going to have. What he does do is rip the cover off the baseball. The hits that he had in the World Baseball Classic coming in over 100 miles an hour plus, he's not striking out. Like, his numbers are way down. He takes more walks. Everything you want out of a ball player is what Vladi is going to do. He plays a great glove at first base as well. All these things, and like, if you go back to, again, the postseason and the World Baseball Classic, the most 2 recent playing sample sizes that we've seen Vladdy have, He's been amazing, man. And I think he's realized that, you have to kind of take up some of the offense that Bo Bichette left there from the Blue Jays, and it's going to be passed along to all the Jays players there. But I think Vladdy has kind of taken over this leader role. He's coming into his first full year of this new extension that he signed. I think he is going to want to prove himself. And of course, the Jays coming off that World Series loss. So all the factors would say, obviously, Judge. I'm going to say Vladdy. I think he's locked and loaded. I think we're going to see a 2021 Vladdy, but even better. That's what I'm saying for the NL. The NL is a little bit more harder to make a choice here because of how amazing Ohtani is. Like, it is Shohei's award to lose at this point. But there are guys who you could say can make that case. You look at these Diamondbacks, Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll are this elite duo that I think, the Diamondbacks, I feel like they're just one or two guys away from really making that 2023 year again. Like that's a few years removed now, but I feel like that Diamondbacks team is still there. They still have those key pieces that were part of that run, and they're there. You look at the Mets. Obviously, Soto and Lindor are two guys that stand out there. What does Tatis do for the Padres? There's a lot of picks here that, can kind of make sense if it's not going to be Ohtani. For me, I think it's about time we saw a healthy, fully ready to go Ronald Acuna Jr. That is my choice for the NL MVP. I think the Braves last year didn't realize the hole they were going to be in. And coming in fourth in a division behind the Marlins, I think that was a massive wake-up call. They know what went wrong for them last year with all of their injuries and all these mistakes that they were making. And, there's still going to be injuries that the Braves have to deal with. But if there's one injury that I think they're going to really know how to manage now is Ronald Acuna Jr. It's been a while since we saw Ronald Acuna Jr. at his best, but when we saw him at his best, he was an MVP winner. Yes, this was before Ohtani ended up on the Dodgers here, but we've had about 2 or 3 years where we haven't seen Ronald Acuna Jr. at his healthiest, fullest version of himself. And the way he played in the World Baseball Classic, I mean, if that's a sign to be had, he's going to want to help this Braves team. He's coming off, a World Baseball Classic win. He was on that Venezuelan team that won it all. He's feeling great about himself. He already has that kind of personal checkmark achieved in the World Baseball Classic. And I think the Braves this year need to make a bigger push against the Phillies and against the Mets. And I think they realize that, and I think he realizes that for himself. Similar to Vladdy in terms of you are a leader in this clubhouse. Matt Olson, yes, he's a veteran kind of player. You and Ozzy's go back and forth, but you have these young guys in the outfield as well as Michael Harris, Austin Riley, who had a tough year. They're going to look for someone to lean on. And if Acuna is such a scary at bat, people start walking him. They're going to start trusting these other guys more. And that's what's going to step up Austin Riley's game, Matt Olson's game, Ozzy Albies' game. When Acuna is in the lineup healthy, ready to go, it doesn't just make the Braves a better team because he's there. Everyone wants to play better because he's there. That's the vibe I get off with the Braves here. And that's why I think it's important that Ronald Acuna Jr. is in the mix there. And I think he should be in the mix for an NL MVP, if not winning the damn thing. So my choices for MVPs include Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Ronald Acuna Jr., two juniors. I feel like that's how I started this podcast. If we go back to the first 2 episodes I did a predictions for, I think it was 2023 when I started this thing, and it was Acuna and Vladdy to win MVP. So that's a little funny come around, I guess you could say. Moving on here, let's get into Cy Youngs. And similar to the MVPs, Skubal and Skeens have both kind of taken over this award. You might as well name the Cy Young Skubal and Skeens because they're the ones who end up winning this thing. But it's not as cutthroat as the MVP. Yes, Judge and yes, Ohtani are going to be the favorites heavily. Skubal and Skeens, they're going to be the favorites, but it's not as heavy as you think because there is tougher competition. If you look at the AL right now, Hunter Brown was very good for the Houston Astros last year. Cole Reagans, when healthy, he can be a guy that goes. You're going to get Garrett Cole back from Tommy John at some point this year, but how good was Max Fried last year? What can Jacob deGrom give you? Jacob deGrom had a sneaky underrated year last year. Now that he's had that kind of healthy year again, there's a level to his game that might elevate. Blue Jays, they got Dylan Cease, Kevin Gausman. There are some names here. The safe pick here, the pick that kind of just makes me feel correct, is Garrett Crochet for Boston here. I think Boston's in for a really fun year. I think between him, Roman Anthony, among some of the other players there. Boston's had a really good offseason. They brought in Sonny Gray. They brought in Ranger Suarez. That takes the load a little bit off of Crochet, but he doesn't want that load off of him. Remember how good he was on the White Sox. Like, he made the White Sox relevant at times in those darkest days for Chicago. Last year, he was so good with Skubal. Like, him and Skubal going back and forth between that Cy Young. And in the end, it did fall to Skubal again because of how dominant Skubal can be. But Garrett Crochet's stuff is nasty. And when you look at the division he's in, he's going to prove himself to be one of the best pitchers in baseball because he has to constantly be going through the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Oilers. Like, those three teams, and even the Rays. Like I said, the Rays are going to be in the mix as well. Like, if he's at his best, if he can win those games for Boston, those divisional matchups, that's going to give Boston a leg up. That gives him a leg up in the Cy Young as well. I think it's a slam dunk decision. I think Crochet, if anyone is going to take down Skubal in the AL, it 100% will be Crochet. And also, to be fair, we don't even know if Skubal's going to finish the year on the Tigers. There's going to be a lot of rumors going out about him at the trade deadline, depending on how this Tiger season goes, right? If they're tough, when we get to July, if they're, third in the division, we could see the Tigers trade Skubal and then what, right? So Garrett Crochet, I think this is his year. He definitely needs a Cy Young at some point. The way he's been pitching recently is so damn good. Moving on for the NL side of things, similar to Skubal, of course, as I've said it a couple times now, Paul Skeens, it's his award to lose, but there's going to be some guys who are in the mix here. You look at Ohtani, he's going to be pitching again. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the Dodgers, of course, are always in an award. We mentioned the Phillies kind of duo ace here of Sanchez and Luzardo. How good can those guys be? Freddie Peralta, you went from the Milwaukee Brewers, a low market ball team, to the New York Mets. If he has a good year again, people are going to really know his name. He's in a contract year. This could be a big year for Freddie Peralta, and I've always been high on the guy. I would love to see him have a great year. Does Chris Sale in his late years here, does he have a chance at anything? All these guys, great pitchers. There's one guy, though, that I think really does stand out, and a guy that I really think deserves more credit than he gives off, and that is Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants. Logan Webb, I'll tell you what, he has been the most consistent pitcher in this decade. Since 2020, since COVID, I would say if I had to pick one guy, if I wanted a guy to go out there, give me his best stuff, I would say Logan Webb is that guy. You look at his last 5 years here from 21 to 2025. He's got 2 All-Star appearances. He's got Cy Young voting in all of those last years. Like, he has been a guy, not only that, but he's healthy and he makes his starts. You go from 2022 to 2025, for example, 32, 33, 33, 34. He's making every damn start and he's winning them. It's obviously tough to win every single one, but his ERA, 3.25, 3.47, 3.22. Like, again, it's not the overwhelmingly like 2.2 like dominant stuff that we so desperately see in some of the Cy Youngs recently. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting last year. He won a Gold Glove. He finished 6th in Cy Young the year before that, and then he was runner-up in 2023. So like, he has been that guy. And it's a tough division, don't get me wrong, because obviously between the Dodgers and the Padres and the Diamondbacks, like, those are hard teams to pitch to. But I feel like every year we see him get a little bit better at those teams. And, every now and then we'll have his hiccup start. But overall, his consistency level is just on another world. Like 120 appearances plus in the last 4 years. There's not many other pitchers that have that number. He has been, if you give a Cy Young for half a century, if you look at the last 5 years, I think Logan Webb easily deserves that Cy Young. And I think this year is going to be a big stepping stone for Logan Webb. And I'm excited to see what kind of Cy Young year he has, because I think there is that level that's in him to go out there and give that kind of Cy Young year. And, the Giants, I think, will be in the mix for a wild card spot potentially. But if they're going to do it, the team needs to kind of take that next level. And also Logan Webb needs to take that next level. We need that sub-3 ERA. He could be in the mix here. So my choice, if not Skeens, would be Logan Webb. Let's get into some more fun award predictions now, because obviously MVPs and Cy Youngs, pretty easy to pick. Rookies of the years, though, these things can go sideways really quickly. The guys you think at the start of the season are going to be in the mix, maybe they're not even, right? Because it's so hard, because you can be a top prospect, you can make it, do all the work, get to the majors, but then in the end, you just don't know what that player is going to be like in the majors. Or when a player comes over from Japan or Korea, you don't know how they're going to adjust to Major League Baseball, which makes these awards very fun to predict, which makes my, 2023 prediction of Corbin Carroll, and not 2023, 2024 of Corbin Carroll and Gunnar Henderson really exciting, because both those guys were the rookies of the year. So that was one thing I was very happy about. Let's try to do it again this year. So again, in the AL, it's kind of difficult in the AL. There were a lot of fun names here. You have Carter Jensen from the Royals. He was a big name kind of coming up in the podcast late last year. You have Samuel Basallo, which who knows how Adley plays, because that will determine how well he plays. There's a mix there. The Tigers with Kevin McGonigal. He's a fun option there. How about all of the Japanese players that have come over into teams here? Munetaka Murakami to the White Sox, Kazumo Okamoto to the Blue Jays, Tatsuya Amai to the Astros. All three of these guys could easily go out and shove and be that kind of version of themselves that they were in Japan. A lot of great names. But again, maybe a little bit of bias here, but I don't know how you cannot choose Trey Savage after what he did in the World Series last year, specifically in the World Series. But even if you go back to what he did the whole postseason, and even those 4 starts he made, 3 starts he made, whatever it was, before the actual playoffs, he has more playoff starts than he does regular season starts. He started game 1 of the World Series, and how incredible was he against game 5 in the World Series? Against, by the way, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the best team in baseball, back-to-back World Series champions, and he made that team look ridiculous. He made Ohtani look like he'd never swung a bat before in his life. There's no way you can look at him and say that guy's not going to be in the mix, not going to win the award. Yes, it's going to hurt him a little bit being on the IL at the start of this year. There he is dealing with something. He's not going to be good to go for opening day. We'll have a couple weeks probably on the IL. But I expect that we see him, late April into early May. And from that point on, I think the confidence that he has from the World Series, from what he's done, I think it's going to be something you can't say, oh, he's not going to win. Depends on how his workload is, depends on how he's used and managed by the Blue Jays. Those are factors that will definitely play a part. Can I easily see him losing this award to one of these other guys that I mentioned? Absolutely. But again, coming off of what he did, there's no way you can look at that and be like, there's going to be someone better than him. No, they can't. Like what he did, you cannot bet against what he did. I'm going to bet for him. I think Trey Savage will hands down easily win the AL Rookie of the Year. But again, shout out Carter Jensen, Munetaka Murakami, Kevin McGonigal. Like there will be competition. And again, if he is more hurt than we're being led on by the Blue Jays, and he's only able to make 15 starts, obviously that won't be enough to win the Rookie of the Year, but it'll be enough to graduate. But regardless, I'm going to pick Trey Savage. And that kind of brings into the NL MVP, kind of the same thing with like my reasoning of why they might not win the MVP. Not the MVP, the Rookie of the Year. You got guys here like Nolan McLean from the Mets, who's the Trey Savage version of the Mets here, kind of this really dominant year that he had towards the end of it. He was one of the only pitchers kind of contributing to the Mets, trying to get them into the wild card berth. But there are other fun names here. Andrew Painter from the Phillies. He's going to be a guy in the mix here. Sal Stewart from the Reds. I think J.J. Weatherholt definitely has a good chance here for the Cardinals. There's not going to be a lot of talent on that team overall. I think he will have a real opportunity to shine. How about Owen Casey from the Marlins? I mean, he was a guy in the World Baseball Classic for Canada that really showed up at times, and he looked pretty good in those few stints that he had with the Cubs last year as well. So there are some fun names here, but for me, and I'm so shocked that this guy is not on the opening day roster, Connor Griffin of the Pittsburgh Pirates, he is my choice for the NL Rookie of the Year. And again, it will come down to when he gets called up to make his Major League debut, when that happens from the Pirates. And again, there's no disrespect to those guys who did make the opening day roster for the Pirates. But in my mind, when you look at this Pirates team, you look at the organization from top to bottom, if you're going to pick the top players on this Pittsburgh team. You say Paul Skeens is your one. Maybe you throw in Brian Reynolds. Maybe you throw in a guy like Ryan O'Hearn, who they just signed. Connor Griffin is a top 5 player in the Pirates organization. So the fact that he's not a top 26 player and is making the major league roster for opening day kind of blows my mind. The power that we saw this spring and that we've saw throughout the minor leagues as well. He is this next generational shortstop hitter. The Pirates have him and they're choosing not to. And like, if they're trying to get that extra year, like, I understand there's like the business of the game, whatever. But if I was a Pirates fan, like, I want this guy here because, again, the Pirates, when you look at the history of the last couple of years, you can't find a reason for why they should be competitive and why they should make the postseason. But when you look at Paul Skeens, you look at a guy like Connor Griffin, like, there's also a reason why you guys can't be that. What the reason is the front office. I mean, they make decisions that kind of hinder this Pirates team from being something great. The NL Central, yes, the Cubs are there. Yes, the Brewers are there. Yes, the Reds, they, made the postseason and everything. That division could easily be won by the Pirates if they go out swinging. And listen, I will say it was great to see them actually make some moves this offseason, bringing in Ozuna, bringing in Soto, bringing in, who's the guy I'm thinking? Ryan O'Hearn. Like, their names that are brought in by the Pirates guys that they actually signed, which, we haven't really seen that for a long, long time. But you have players internally that will help your team win. Connor Griffin is one of those guys. He should 100% be on the roster. It's a shame that he's not, but I still think that when he comes up, it's going to be between him and JJ Weatherholt, really, these two shortstops battling. Weatherholt will have the advantage of being around since opening day and, having more of that length. But I think Connor Griffin, when he comes up, I think he's going to ball out. I mean, I haven't been this excited about a shortstop prospect since Bo Bichette in 2019. I think he's the real deal. I'm so happy for Pittsburgh Pirates fans. And when this guy gets the call, like, that's going to be really exciting to have a diamond. You can go to the ballpark, PNC Park, one of the most beautiful ballparks in Major League, and you can go see Paul Skeens start with Connor Griffin playing shortstop. Like, that is Pittsburgh Pirate baseball to be excited about. I think Connor Griffin is the real deal, and he's my choice for the Rookie of the Year alongside Trey Yesavage. That is what I have to say about the rookies, and let's see how wrong I am come the end of the year. Moving on, we've got relievers of the year. This one, there's some options here, some quick names. I didn't spend too much time thinking about the names here, though, because I kind of felt pretty confident just going into it. From the AL, Andres Munoz was amazing last year, and I think he's going to be amazing again this year. There are some really good closers, some elite relief pitchers in the AL, but like when you go through all the teams and you think, who do I trust right now? Ball in the ninth inning, 1-run game, get me out of this inning, get me this win. Who's going to save this game? Andres Munoz has become that guy for the Mariners. We saw how good he was last year, helping the Mariners get to the ALCS for the first time since 2001. Like, this is a great, great pitcher. I think he's got it in him to be great, for a long time. And he's, he's a guy, like, that fastball slider combo, it works well. He's elite. I'm going to take him for the AL reliever of the year. For the NL reliever of the year, thank you, Padres, for making sure that Mason Miller stays a relief pitcher. Because as a starter, when he was a starter, if you remember, Mason Miller came up as a starter and he had some time and he was not good. When the A's made him a reliever, he became the Mason Miller that we know him for today. The Mason Miller that the Padres traded Leo DeVries to for Mason Miller. He's that kind of guy. They obviously lost Robert Suarez to the Braves this offseason. He is now like 100% guaranteed their closer. What he did with America in the World Baseball Classic, like, when he's ready to go, it looks like he's playing with the batters out there. It looks like he's playing with his food. His fastball is so good. He tops out 103. Like, it's just, you mix that with the slider, it's just unhittable, man, when he's right. Obviously, there's every now and then he'll have his control issues, but, like, he looks so good, and I think it's an easy choice. It's similar enough to Yesavage, where, like, the talent is there that you can't bet against. Like, yes, maybe he'll have some control issues this year. Maybe he's not as on point as he has been in years past. But if you were going to say, who do you think, like, most talented-wise, like, if everyone's playing at their best possible skill level, who has the highest ceiling, without a doubt, it's Mason Miller. Easy enough. Munoz and Miller watch out for these guys. Padres and Mariners, West Coast, be careful come late games because those guys will do some damage. Moving on now, we have our last big award to predict here, and that is, of course, the Managers of the Year. And now this one is always, you got to look at the team as a whole, because yes, the managers and how they manage the bullpen and how they manage situations and all this stuff, that will play a key component into that. But you have to think, is a team like the Texas Rangers going to be in the mix? Because if they're not really in the mix for postseason, like, it's hard to say Skip Schumacher deserves a Manager of the Year title. When you look at the AL, there are some options here and some interesting options as well. I mean, Craig Albernaz, who is the Baltimore Orioles manager, after the season they had last year, if he can lead this team to a division win, that deserves some credit. That could easily win him a Manager of the Year title. Dan Wilson with the Mariners, how good can he be once again? Obviously, you have to give lots of flowers to John Schneider, who, again, I think should have won Manager of the Year award last year, and a lot of people would agree. Of course, what Stephen Vogt did with the Guardians was just incredible, so hats off to Stephen Vogt as well. And, of course, since he's managed the Guardians, he's won the Manager of the Year award every single year, both years. And he's going for his three-peat this year. And I think if he can do something crazy with the Guardians again this year, there's a real reason for him to get that award. Among some of the other, obviously, notable names here, my guy that I'm going to go with here, and this maybe is just how much belief I have in the Royals this year, I'm going to say it's Matt Quatraro for the Royals. I think the Royals have this level that we haven't yet tapped into. And I think Carter Jensen is going to be a real key piece into that going forward. If he can be that kind of, young talent that the Royals need, you mix that with Bobby Witt, who of course will be in the running for an MVP. You mix that with Vinny P, who had a really good World Baseball Classic. You mix that with Salvador Perez, who's the captain of this team, who leads this team every day. He's been around since 2015, more longer than that. But of course, remember those World Series teams that he was a big piece in. You mix that with Cole Reagans up there, Seth Lugo, like the pitching, the bullpen with Carlos Estevez and Lucas Ursig. Like, there's a lot of key pieces here. And again, I don't know if it's my lack of faith in the Tigers after they threw away the division last year. I don't know if it's my lack of Guardian fatigue, but something tells me this is the Royals' year to do something crazy. They could be easily in this division race, and I think they might win it. So that's why I'm having Matt Quatraro there for the Royals for the AL Manager of the Year. On the NL side, again, similar with Stephen Vogt, where you have Pat Murphy, who's since becoming the Brewers manager, he's won it both years. Him and Stephen Vogt the last 2 years, they're the only two managers that have won the Manager of the Year. So it's no fun to pick those guys, right? Obviously, there are some names. Don Kelly is getting a lot of love with the Pirates because, again, if the Pirates do anything in terms of getting close to the postseason, Don Kelly's going to deserve a lot of respect. And, how much of a say is he going to have and when Connor Griffin comes up and how this Pittsburgh Pirates team gets managed. Dave Roberts, I mean, you're going to have to do a lot, right? The Dodgers got to win 120 games for Dave Roberts to get considered in that ways. Obviously, Walt Weiss, who's back as a manager with the Braves now, after coming off a really tough year for Atlanta last year, what does he have in store? And how much can he help kind of right the Braves season? For me, though, I'm going to go and say Craig Counsell. I believe that the Cubs team last year was better than the Brewers, and I think the postseason showed that in that 5-game series that they played. I think what the Cubs were able to do in the regular season, how close they kind of got. I mean, the Brewers, they played a great brand of baseball throughout the regular season, but when you look at the NLCS against the Dodgers, there's this level that I think if the Cubs won Game 5, then we're saying that NLCS would have been a little bit closer between the Cubs and the Dodgers. And I still believe that. I think, and maybe again, my podcast, the common theme, how much I underestimate this Brewers team. The Cubs, though, I just feel with now bringing in Bregman instead of Tucker, they did enough to kind of stay in this mix. And I think the Brewers, again, I don't know how you bet on the Brewers after you traded away your Rookie of the Year finalists who finished third and fourth. You traded away Freddie Peralta, your ace. And, like, yes, they're still going to be a good team. They still have great pieces, but I think that NL Central battle is going to be really close, really tight. I think whoever wins that will win the Manager of the Year. And I think the Cubs are going to win that. And that's why I have Craig Counsell winning it. Like, he's been a top manager for the Brewers. He's come over. He's kind of had to learn this, Cubs method of baseball. And every year we've seen him get better and better. I think there's still levels to that. There's a reason why he's one of the highest paid managers. And I think Craig Counsell deserves that kind of pay salary, and I think he deserves a Manager of the Year, and he is my pick for the NL side of things here, which brings us now to the ending of division winners and, of course, my World Series pick. Again, if you missed, I did do our DOPs, our division outlooks and predictions. I went over all 6 divisions, all 30 teams, talking about who was added, who was lost, what lineups are going to look like. Some examples of that, as well as going into my overs and unders for some teams, as well as listing in order who I think will finish first, second, third, fourth, and fifth in each division. So I went through those episodes just to make sure I got everything right here. So for my division winners and my wild card teams, I didn't announce wild card teams, so that's something that's new in this episode here. For the AL East, I think the Blue Jays repeat. And I think the Blue Jays, it's the toughest division in baseball. And if anyone says anything different, you're wrong. It's the Blue Jays, it's the Yankees, it's the Red Sox, it's the Oilers, it's the Rays, and any one of these teams can win this division. The Blue Jays, I have winning the division and having them finish first. We could be talking about 6 months from now, the Blue Jays are fifth in the division. Like, there is so much, like, every team's high is first, every team's low is last. You have 2 or 3 things go wrong, you're at the bottom of this division. That's how close this division is going to be. Watch out, man. This AL East is going to be deadly. But what the Blue Jays did last year, the way the style of baseball they played, yes, they lost Bo Bichette, but they brought in Okamoto. They added Dylan Cease. They added Cody Ponce, who throughout their spring training has looked very good. If you have that, like, you added starting pitching depth, you just have to find a way to make up Bo's offense. This is almost the exact same team. And, like, yes, the questions will be, like, can Barger kind of have that repeat power season? Can Ernie Clement still be the Ernie Clement that goes, 2 for 4 every game and just finds a way to battle? How good is Nathan Lucas going to be? Like, those will be the questions that get asked. If the Blue Jays can answer those questions, there's no reason for them to not be favorites to win. And again, I think Vladdy's going to have an MVP caliber year. I think your Savage could have a Rookie of the Year caliber year. Kevin Gausman and Dylan Cease, there's some options there for the Cy Young as well. Like, this Blue Jays team could be really fun in 2026, man. So it's hard to bet against the Blue Jays, but that's not to discredit the rest of the teams in that division because, again, it is such a good division. Moving on to the AL Central, this pick is very easy for me because it's the Manager of the Year that I made. The Kansas City Royals. Again, I think Bobby, similar to Vladdy, those guys are going to have very strong years. I think the pitching is taking a level up here, and I think there's some more depth to be excited about for the Royals. You mix that in with the Carter Jensen, and this Royals team is geared up. The Central, a little bit weaker than the East in terms of the overall talent. But that's not to say that the Royals are going to have an easy run to the division. Because, again, the Guardians, led by Jose Ramirez, is still going to be a problem, and it's still going to be in the mix. You cannot count out Tarek Skubal. How good can some of those young talent be? We saw this fatigue late in the Tigers season with guys like Riley Green and Dylan Dingler and Kerry Carpenter. If those guys can, go a full season of their top game, their top level baseball, Tigers, of course, could be one of those favorite teams to win the Central as well, but I'm going to bet on the Royals to take over that AL Central. Moving on to the West, I think people are going to underrate the Houston Astros and maybe even Texas just a little bit, but the talent that the Mariners have, I mean, you could say that the Mariners should be the best team in the AL. When you look at all 15 teams across these divisions, it's hard to find a way to be like the Mariners aren't number one. They have talent up and down the lineup. They have one of the top 5 rotations in baseball. They have one of the best relief pitchers in baseball in Andres Munoz. Like, the Mariners check every box. Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Randy Rosarena. They signed Josh Naylor to a 5-year deal. They've got Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Luis Castillo. Like the rotation is locked. There's so much to love about this Mariners team, and they came oh so close to that World Series berth. That first ever World Series berth. It's their 50th anniversary. There's big things to be happy about with Seattle. Coming off a couple years where you're like, oh, we're so close, but we're just missing it. Last year, you had it. You got the division. You beat the big brother in the Astros, and you got through the ALDS against the Tigers. You made it to the ALCS. You couldn't find a way to get out hit past the Blue Jays. But this year could be different, and I think there's some big things coming from the Mariners in 2026. So my division winners for the AL are the Blue Jays, the Royals, and the Mariners. On the NL East, again, it's a 3-team battle really for me between the Phillies, Mets, and Braves. I'm taking the Phillies. I think the overall talent that's there kind of overshadows the Braves and the Mets. I mean, you look at last year for the Braves, there's going to be injury problems still for Atlanta. I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year, but like how you bet against Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, who they brought back, like, yeah, I'll still take the Phillies pretty easily. The Mets, talent-wise, on paper, are the best team, you could say. But again, how does it actually look? The Mets had the biggest shakeup, of the year between all 30 teams. Like, their team is massively different. They traded away guys like Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, guys who have been on the Mets for the longest time. Pete Alonso signed with Baltimore. Like, there's a big shakeup. But you bring in Bo Bichette, you bring in some other guys here, Jorge Polanco. Like, how's the defense going to look in the infield? I mean, you've got 2 shortstops and 2 second basemen, essentially, and you're having one play first and one play third. I'm still having questions about that myself. There are things that I don't know about the Mets. I think we might be in for one of those Metsy seasons where it's just like, surprise, you guys are way worse than we thought. But I hope that's wrong. I hope the Mets are competitive. Obviously no Edwin Diaz now. They bring in Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, 2 guys who struggled with the Yankees last year, but 2 guys who have had lots of success before last year as well. So if you can kind of write those guys, that fills the Edwin Diaz hole. Your starting pitching definitely got better. You traded for Freddie Peralta. So, like, it's going to be a very interesting year. The Mets team that we saw last year is very different than the Mets team we saw that we're going to see this year. Talent-wise, still very similar, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to take over the Phillies, who, again, just have up and down talent through the roster there. For the NL Central, similar to what I said in the AL Central, it's going to be the Cubs. I think the Reds, they made the postseason last year. No Hunter Green for the start of the season is going to hurt them. The Brewers, again, I'm underrating, but maybe they're going to shut me up again and show why they're the best team in the Central. But again, I just like this Cubs team a lot, man. I don't think the Cardinals and Pirates have it in them to stop them. Between what the Reds are going to offer, not much. So for me, it really comes down to Cubs and Brewers. And again, I always underestimate the Brewers. They're going to show me wrong and win the Central again, but I'm going to take the Cubs pretty easily here, bringing in Bregman for that division as well. The NL West. I like all the teams in the NL West, man. I love the Rockies. Obviously, they're not going to be competitive. I love the Padres. I love the Diamondbacks. I love the Giants. All 3 teams could be so good this year. The Dodgers will obviously win the division because of the Dodgers. Doesn't matter if Ohtani's hurt. Doesn't matter if Betts is hurt. Doesn't matter if Freddie's hurt. It will matter if all of them are hurt at the same time, plus more. But they have Yamamoto. They have Snell. They have a lineup filled with stars. It'd be shocked if they don't win the division. I mean, yes, they might end up in the wild card round again, finishing 3rd among the division teams like they did last year, but they're going to win the division. You cannot say no, they're not. If it doesn't happen, then hey, big shock to everybody else, but come on, be real. So the Phillies, Cubs, and Dodgers are the teams in the NL there. So overall, Blue Jays, Royals, Mariners, Phillies, Cubs, and Dodgers are my division predictions. For the wild card teams, I said this in my AL East DOP. I think the AL wildcard could be filled with all AL East teams, and that's exactly what I'm going to believe in. I think the Red Sox will finish as the 1 seed, the Yankees will finish as the 2 seed, and Baltimore will finish as the 3 seed. I'm so high on this AL East going back to 2021, where the Jays finished 4th with 91 wins and missed the postseason. That's what I feel like we're in for again, where Baltimore is going to finish 4th in the AL East, but have 92 wins and win a wild card. Like, that's the kind of year I feel like is in for the AL East. It's gonna be very fun and competitive, that division. And yeah, I think all the wild card teams will come from the AL. Obviously, shout out the Detroit, shout out Astros. They can put up a fight as well, but that's what I'm saying. For the wild card teams in the NL, I love the Giants, but I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks and Padres to make it out of the NL West. I had the Diamondbacks finishing as the 1 seed, actually, while the Padres I had finishing as the 3 seed. That 2 seed, I'm going to say, is Atlanta. I know there's been some injury question marks there, but I think that they're going to have a much better season. And again, I have Acuna having, an MVP caliber season, a guy who I think can win the MVP. I think the Braves are going to kind of realize that, like, hey, last year sucked. Let's not do that again, right? Let's go win our division. Let's go be competitive. And I don't think they're going to win the division, but I definitely think we're going to see the Braves back in the postseason this year, led by Acuna, led by Olsen and these guys. So I had the Diamondbacks as the 1 seed, Braves as the 2 seed, and the Padres as the 3 seed. So those are the 12 teams that I think will make the postseason, which brings us to the last prediction to make, which is the World Series winner. And again, you can call it some bias, you can call it some stuff, but there is some hope that I have this year, something that I truly, truly do believe in, and that is this Toronto Blue Jays team. I think what we saw last year was just the start of what's to come. I think we're going to see kind of a new era of baseball where some teams are going to want to replicate what the Jays do, put the ball in play, make flashy defensive plays, good defense, putting the ball in play, no strikeouts. That's a brand of baseball. And by the way, these guys can still hit for power too. It's not like they're subtracting the home run ball to just hit singles and doubles and run the bases well. Like, they do a lot of things right. And I just really believe that the Blue Jays brand of baseball is something that a lot of teams are going to want to start trying to kind of take over and kind of make in their own way. The Jays have done it really well. We saw it last year a lot. And I think that even though they lost Bo Bichette, this Jays team is still going to be that brand of baseball of put the ball in play, good things will happen. And could I be wrong about this completely and the Jays don't make the postseason at all? Absolutely. And that's how tough the AL East is. But something about this Jays team, the depth they have starting pitcher-wise, the bullpen looks good. Like, it just checks all the boxes. I have the Blue Jays winning the World Series, and I cannot wait for them to prove me right. Hopefully. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our prediction episode here today. We've done the off season. This is it. We're done. Off season wrapped up, put a bow on it, tie it up, throw it away. Next episode will be on Monday, a week from today, and it will be the first 2026 season recap. Get ready for opening day, folks, because it's time. Go out, go to your favorite ballpark, watch your favorite team, watch them on TV, get your popcorn, get your jersey out of the attic, get it ready to go, because today is the first day of where baseball really feels like it's back fully ready to go. That potential for fireworks is here, and it's hope that kills us. Your favorite team might win the World Series this year if you keep watching, guys. Baseball is back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, buddy, so much, and I will see you on Monday.